Next up, we will hear from Kathy Nightengale, who said it can't be done when working as one brings great results. AM for MND. Kathy?
Who said it can't be done when working as one brings great results? AM for MND. Australia moves for MND. Greetings from Melbourne, Australia. My name is Kathy Nightengale, and I was the Manager Supported Development at MND Victoria from October 2010 until August 2020, when I took on the role of Manager Special Projects and Coordinator National Fundraising. It is a great privilege to be presenting to the International Symposium about the 6 MND state organisations and MND Australia, how we work together for our first coordinated national awareness and fundraising activity. Firstly, a little background on how the MND organisations operate in Australia. MND Australia is research arm, MND Research Australia, and the 6 state MND organisations form the only national network focused on improving the lives of all Australians living with motor neuron disease and advancing research to end MND. For over 35 years, this national network of state MND organisations has provided direct support and services to people living with MND in all states and territories. In addition, together with MND Australia and its research arm, MND Research Australia, the network has helped increase understanding of the disease and advocated for improvements in its treatment and care to ensure that 2,100 Australians living with MND have the best quality of life. Due to the differences in population in each state, and thus the number of people with MND, the state organisations vary in size and services delivered. MND New South Wales and MND Victoria have by far the largest populations, and thus people with MND, accounting for over 50% of the total Australian MND clients. As a result, each state organisation's fundraising team differs, with most of the smaller states having only 1 or 1.5 full-time equivalent employees who manage fundraising, communications and marketing. MND Victoria and MND New South Wales are slightly larger, with 2.5 or 3 full-time equivalent employees. Australia is fortunate to have the National Disability Insurance Scheme, the NDIS, which funds people with disabilities, including people with MND. But people aged over 65 when diagnosed cannot access this funding. And currently 55% of our client base is aged over 55 when diagnosed. So fundraising is hugely important. While the Federation of State MND Organisations has worked closely together for many years around advocacy and service delivery, fundraising has been mainly state-based and will largely continue to be so. However, new entrants in the MND fundraising space has created confusion and increased competition for the donation dollar. In 2019, the State MND Executive Management Group, the EMG, recognised this growing competitive market and determined the timing was good to trial some coordinated national fundraising and awareness events. This was going to include each state organisation holding an actual Walk to Defeat MND event on May the 3rd, the start of National MND Awareness Week. But as we all know, COVID-19 caused that to be postponed. As MND Victoria has one of the larger fundraising and communications team, they took on the role of national coordination. A monthly teleconference was implemented to discuss ideas and ways to work together. And after some initial hesitancy and following a face-to-face meeting in Adelaide in January, the group really gelled and shared a number of ideas. MND Victoria had implemented a virtual fundraising event during MND Awareness Week. in both 2018 and 2019, with both raising around $10,000 each. So we had some experience with running a virtual event via our online fundraising platform. Based on this past success, it was proposed that in 2020, we should have a national virtual awareness and fundraising event, which would run from the start of MND Week, May the 3rd, and finish on ALS-MND Global Day, June the 21st. Lots of ideas were thrown around, and it was agreed that the final visual concept must incorporate the whole of Australia to capture fundraisers from across the nation. After researching a few different fundraising platform developers, we chose to work with Evenico, who had previously designed Victoria's Walk to Defeat MND site, which was very user-friendly. Our original timeline was January and to decide on the concept and the name, and in February to appoint a developer and to start working on the actual concept and test site. And March, we were going to review everything and finalize the design with a launch due to take place the end of April, early May. But then along came COVID-19. Community fundraising events started falling over, and the EMGs and fundraising managers recognized the need to act quickly to plug the expected income gap. AM4MND now became a high priority, and we worked like mad to get things finished a couple of weeks earlier than originally planned. On April the 3rd, our first email went out to advise people the campaign was coming, and on April the 27th, just 4 days later, we actually officially launched AM4MND. This slide shows the Australia Moves for MND logo, which, as you can see, is a very clever visual way to represent the whole country, including Tasmania. This is the homepage of AM4MND. We chose to go with a retro look that we thought would attract people of all ages. You will note that there are 3 drop-down menus: Make Your Move, What is MND, and FAQ. These were accessible on all pages of the site. Some of the FAQs were, how can I join in? How do I create a fundraising page? Do I have to dress up, etc. So what is AM4MND? It's a virtual event that was coordinated nationally, but people would choose which state they wish to support. It had to be fun, and it had to be easy to participate. We wanted to capitalize on the fact that restrictions limited people's activities and large gatherings were discouraged throughout Australia. It was spread over 6 weeks, and registrants could choose what to do and when to do it. So what activities were registrants expected to do? There was a drop-down menu, as I said, accessible from each page that gave a list of various activities that could be fun and could be done easily. This slide highlights the activities that could be done indoors or at home. This list shows some of the activities that could be done outside, some easy so that they could be done by children or those with limited ability, some harder for the true fitness fanatics. One of MND Victoria's volunteers actually walked 52 kilometres a day for a total of 2,100 kilometres, which represents the number of Australians living with MND each day. He raised almost $30,000. Navigation through the site was very visual and easy for people to identify which state they wanted to support. We confirmed why it was important for people to register by again highlighting how the cancellation of all fundraising events was having a big financial impact. All states were visually represented so people could choose which state to support. And from this page, people could either register to become a super mover or donate to a super mover. Each state had its own homepage where they could customize their information and their top fundraisers were highlighted. This is an example of MND Victoria's homepage, which gives a brief overview of our services. We chose not to charge a fee and included the link to register on all pages. Plus, there is a link to our Facebook page. This slide shows the clean, simple, no-fee registration page for the state of your choice. Super movers could then set up and individualize their own fundraising page, where supporters could leave messages of encouragement and the participant could thank them. This site included gamification, so participants could earn virtual badges when they achieve certain goals, such as setting up their fundraising page, sharing to their social media, reaching a financial target. This is an example of Lisa's fundraising page, which shows how she was planning to move, her fundraising goal, how she was tracking, and what badges she had achieved. This is an example of how easy it was for Lisa to receive messages of encouragement and for her to thank her supporters. And this is just an example of one of the top fundraising pages that was on our site. So this shows the 6 top fundraisers for Victoria. It shows who they were, how much they raised, and what they were planning to do. It was important to have a fundraising meter on each state page so that their participants could see how they were tracking. And this was aggregated onto the home page. So when you first signed up, you could see how much the event had actually raised to date. Communications was a key to making this campaign successful. We engaged Invenico to manage the marketing and communications, mainly because we didn't have the in-house resources, and they did do a great job. Prior to the first email, each state provided their email list to Invenico, and we worked with them on the copy. 13 emails were sent over the campaign, and in addition, each state followed up with their state participants either by phone or by email. So what did we learn? There were 5 important takeaway points. You need to develop a detailed comm plans as soon as its concept is agreed, and if possible, manage this in-house. Get as many videos from clients as you can because they are the best promotion, particularly on social media. And it's important to get more and more stories from the actual clients and families of clients, because it really is the client stories that get people to register and raise funds to support their friends. Collect mobile phone and address details on registration. We chose not to initially, but then we decided to encourage the super movers to raise more funds by sending them free AM4MND sweatbands and towels. This was an afterthought and not very successful, as it took some time to get all the details. Plus, due to COVID, sourcing merchandise took longer than planned. But we will be doing this next year. More emphasis on encouraging registrants to post images of their activities on their social media and to use the hashtag AM4MND. And choose your platform developer wisely. There are many to choose from. Invenico provided us with everything we needed and gave great support. So what next? As a national team, we have developed a strong relationship, which is enabling more sharing of ideas that we believe will increase our opportunities to raise awareness and funds. Specifically, we have ongoing discussions on a monthly basis with the national team regarding concepts for virtual awareness and fundraising events next year, probably in May to June again. We're continuing to work with Invenico, and in fact, most recently, they developed the virtual Walk to Defeat MND Tour of Victoria, which was very successful and to date has raised over $260,000. And while it was disappointing not to have an actual event on November the 15th, which we would normally do, we raised more dollars than ever before. So it's possible next year will be a hybrid event. We've agreed on the potential 2021 national activities such as Drink Tea for MND in August, and other ideas are being discussed. We're currently developing a fundraising e-brochure, and other resources that can be used nationally. And this is particularly helpful to the smaller state organisations. So that's a wrap for AM4MND 2020. We had 186 super movers participate, and we raised a total of $212,000 across all states. This was an excellent result, particularly as this was the first time we'd had a nationally coordinated event, and a number of the state organisations were also running COVID-19 emergency appeals. Thank you for watching this presentation. I hope you found it interesting and informative, and perhaps there were one or two ideas you can take away and use for your future fundraising.
Thank you, Kathy. That was a terrific presentation and very creative. Thank you for sharing that. I've got a question here. Someone's asking that they're amazed that you can manage all of this with only 10 full-time staff. So wondering if you used a volunteer basis.
Well, actually, we don't really have 10 full-time staff. That's across all the states, and mostly states work separately. For the national coordination, there were 10 of us, but we really were only meeting on a monthly basis. So no, this is basically done without a lot of volunteer activities, although the community run events that we normally have, we do have great volunteers. I mean, Victoria alone has 120 active volunteers, and I'm not sure how many the other states are, but volunteering is very much something that is a part of our organisations.
Thank you. We've got another question here as well. Can you explain how people were able to make a choice about which state to support?
So that's a very good question. So when they actually logged into the site, they could actually choose, each state was highlighted, and they could actually choose which state they wanted. So when they went to register, they could do that in a couple of ways. When they went to register, they were asked which state, or they could choose the state right from the beginning.
And I have one final question, I guess. Was this the first federated campaign that had been done in this way?
Absolutely. Yes, each of the states do run their own fundraising activities, and they're pretty much very successful. But this was the first time we've done a national federated one, and we're already, in fact, in about an hour's time, I'll be having a 2-hour teleconference for next year, where we're going to be discussing how AM4MND will look next year. So this has been a great opportunity for us to learn. We were very lucky in MND Victoria recently has completed its virtual walk, and that was a great success using the same fundraising platform developer. And we really want to try and raise the bar next year. So we'd kind of like to make our goal next year at least 750,000. So we've got a big jump ahead of us.
Good luck. It sounds fabulous. Thank you for that.